We at Made for Freedom want to welcome you to this deep event, a party with a purpose where we learn how dignified employment empowers and protects those who are at risk for exploitation. Our hope is that this event will help you gather together, learn about the issue of human trafficking, and be inspired to be part of the solution. First, a note. We're about to go deep into the very tough topic of human trafficking, and we'll be hearing stories of abuse and exploitation. Everyone reacts to these realities differently, which is why it's important that this be a judge-free zone where people can feel comfortable. If the content feels overwhelming, remember to take care of yourself. For example, take a breather outside or in a different room, or you can space out and just center yourself. And now a welcome from our founder and CEO, Dawn Manske.
Several years ago, I saw a video of young girls being sold for sexual acts. It tore me up inside, but I had no idea how I could be part of the solution. Over the next several years, I began to better understand how business can be used to make life-changing impact at a global level. About the same time, I was being bombarded with compliments on my favorite funky international pants. You know something is up when a TSA agent comments on your pants, and then a flight attendant asks about your pants, and a woman chases you down in a parking lot to ask about your pants. I began to wonder, could these pants be the foundation of a business that could help women rescued from trafficking? I started building the business, but the compliments on the pants did not stop. And many times, the questions and comments served as a reminder of why I have poured so much time, energy, and myself into building Made for Freedom. In the beginning phases, one of the most difficult and dreaded tasks for me was to write our business plan. I set aside time one Saturday, a horrible, rainy Saturday. After discovering my computer had crashed and freaking out a little bit, I decided to go shopping for fabric that would be used in the prototypes of the pants. Several of us stood in line, and I remember thinking we all looked a little demoralized. Maybe because of the horrible weather, maybe other concerns, like a dead computer. Then the lady next to me said, "I really like your pants." At this point, all I could do was smile. Let me tell you about my pants. She lit up as I told her about the mission of Made for Freedom and the women we wanted to help by making pants similar to these. Women continue to compliment me, and each time I smile with the response, "Let me tell you about my pants." We received our first order of Crea Belly pants in 2014. Since then, we have broadened our product line and have generated thousands of hours of dignified employment by partnering with over 15 centers around the world. Thank you so much for joining us as we go deep. Get ready to learn how dignified employment empowers and protects.
Let's start with a quick quiz to test your knowledge of the issue of human trafficking. Number 1, what is human trafficking? Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery in which traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to control victims for the purpose of engaging in commercial sex acts or labor services against his or her will. In the United States, anyone under the age of 18 involved in commercial sex is automatically considered a victim of human trafficking. Number 2, human trafficking happens in the following places: A, urban cities, B, small rural towns, C, suburbs, or D, all of the above. D, all of the above. Human trafficking can happen in any community, no matter the location or economic or social status. Number 3, what are the two main types of human trafficking? The two main types of human trafficking are sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Number 4, true or false? Human trafficking only affects women and girls, and men are always the perpetrators. False. Human trafficking cases have been reported where victims and perpetrators were male, female, and transgender. Number 5, true or false? It is easy to estimate how many victims of human trafficking there are in the United States and worldwide. False. It is very hard to estimate the scope of human trafficking both in the United States and worldwide. This is due to several factors, including the fact that this is a hidden crime, differences in the definition of human trafficking, and the lack of any standardized data collection. Number 6. Which of the following can be an indicator for potential trafficking? A. Inability to speak to an individual alone. B. History of domestic abuse. C. Someone not having control of their money or identification. Or D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Indicators of trafficking usually involve the demonstration of control, abuse, and/or neglect. Throughout her work with Made for Freedom, Dawn has recognized that there are 5 key components to human trafficking.
To completely flesh out these 5 stages, we could fill volumes. What I'm presenting is not complete by any means, but it does offer a starting point. The 5 key components are vulnerabilities, procurers and perpetrators, exploitation, rescue and restore, return and reintegrate. Vulnerabilities is a situation, and people in these situations are sometimes referred to as marginalized. Many times, vulnerability starts with a need, which may be physical, emotional, or relational. We are going to look at some high-risk vulnerabilities. Extreme poverty is one. If a family is barely able to put food on the table, an offer of a good job in the big city for the daughter sounds like an amazing opportunity. A single mother struggling to make ends meet will do whatever she can to take care of her child. Devaluation of the girl child is another. In the U.S., women are still fighting for equality, but we don't really understand the cultural devaluation of females experienced in many parts of the world. A vulnerability that sometimes gets overlooked is objectification of women. If a man, group, or culture has a mindset that women are to be used for their personal pleasure, the women around him or them are vulnerable. Another vulnerability is lack of support from friends and family, or having no support at all. On average, a runaway will be approached by a trafficker or solicited for sex within 72 hours of leaving home. And imagine the multiple vulnerabilities refugees experience after leaving their home country. A new language, culture, and legal system, all of which make it difficult to provide for themselves. One vulnerability that hides deep within a person is insecurity. My parents don't understand me. I don't have any real friends. How many teenagers are insecure? 100%, all to varying degrees, but all experiencing lack of self-esteem.
To traffickers, victims are easily replaceable because there are always pools of vulnerable people available from which they can recruit. Now, you may be asking, how many vulnerable people are we talking about? Well, let's look at vulnerability by the numbers.
Foray Crafts is a center we work closely with here in our own city. Foray is the acronym for Friends of Refugees and Immigrants. This center provides training and dignified employment for refugees and immigrants, primarily from Burma and Nepal. They make our beautiful silver and gold lariat necklaces, the tangled teardrop earrings, as well as our reversible headbands and bow ties. Loon's story of resilience gives a better picture of how difficult life can be when you're fleeing for your life.
My name is Loon. I'm originally from Burma, also known as Myanmar, but I had to leave my village to escape war and the oppression of a military dictatorship. I escaped under the cover of darkness and traveled for 2 months by foot, car, bus, and boat in order to get to Malaysia, and was eventually resettled in St. Louis in 2009. Even though I miss my homeland, I am grateful to be in America and so proud that my husband and I are now U.S. citizens. The employment I have with Foray Crafts allows me to supplement my husband's salary and help provide for my family. I enjoy working with Foray because sewing at home provides the flexibility I need to care for my children while earning an income. My husband and I work hard to provide for our family and give our children the opportunities we never had.
It's hard to imagine the pain that some people are willing to inflict on others, but identifying vulnerabilities is a skill that procurers and perpetrators have perfected. They see a need and come in with a promise to meet that need, which in reality is a lie. Procurers and perpetrators use a combination of tactics, including force, fraud, and/or coercion, to recruit and control their victims. Force is pretty obvious and can include physical and sexual abuse, forced drug addiction, and severe neglect. Fraud is usually to recruit and control a victim through false promises to fulfill a need. Lastly, coercion includes more psychological abuse, largely around threats and intimidation.
As you watch the following clip, think about what elements of force, fraud, and coercion are being used to recruit and control the victim.
During a visit to Starfish Project in Beijing, China, the founder explained to me how they had developed a good routine working with women coming out of the red light districts near them. Recently, they have connected with international rescue teams and have become known for the incredible programs and training they offer. Now, they also accept women from other countries, which brings in new languages, new cultures, and a variety of challenges they have not faced before. The third component is exploitation. Human trafficking is the fastest growing illegal industry. You might be wondering, why don't victims run away? Force, fraud, and/or coercion is not only used to recruit, but to control victims. Once a person has been sold, captured, or coerced, a process called seasoning begins. Seasoning is a combination of psychological manipulation, gang rape, beatings, forced drug addiction, deprivation of food or sleep, and/or threatening one's family. This is designed to break down a victim's resistance and ensure compliance. It can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 years, depending on how much fight the girl has in her. Simply said, they beat the hope out of her. One reason sex trafficking is growing so quickly is that the location for selling sex in many cases has moved from street corners to online. This means a man looking to buy sex no longer needs to go to that part of town. He just pulls out his smartphone, browses, and orders a girl to meet him at an agreed-upon location.
Take a look at Seema's story and identify the types of tactics used by her perpetrators to trick and control her.
Once upon a time, there lived a little girl named Seema. She was a clever and pretty girl who loved to dream. She dreamt about many things, like going to a city and riding in a car and wearing fancy clothes. Every day while Seema worked in the fields with her father and mother, she looked up at the mountains and wondered what was on the other side. But no one had ever left their little valley, except a few, and they never returned. Then one day something wonderful happened. A man from the city came to the valley in search of the most beautiful girl in all of the countryside. He was looking for a girl who wanted a life of adventure, who was willing to go to the city and ride in cars. A girl who wanted to wear fancy clothes. He made movies, he said, and wanted to make Seema a star. He gave Seema's father more money than he had ever seen as a down payment for Seema's work, with the promise of more to come. It took 2 days to travel back to the city. Seema couldn't have been more excited because for the first time, she saw what was on the other side of the mountains. She discovered the world was a much bigger place than she could have ever dreamed. When they reached the city, there were men waiting. Seema would never be in a film. That wasn't the reason she was brought here. She tried to scream, but it was of no use. No one was coming to save her. The men did things to Seema that she couldn't understand, and then threw her in a closet and locked the door. Seema's dreams died on the floor in that little room that day. Daily the men returned. At first she would resist, but after a while she didn't fight. She didn't even feel anymore. Seema wanted to die. She just wanted to be home. The men told her that if she ever tried to leave, they would kill her father and mother. Her heart became numb until she finally accepted her fate. She was trapped, doomed to live out the rest of her days as a slave to men's pleasures. Slowly, her soul rotted away until even Seema couldn't recognize the little girl she once was.
Eden Ministry works with ladies who have come out of local red light districts. I was able to make a quick visit to Kunming to visit these impressive women and gain a better understanding of the impact being made by them. They send outreach teams into that community every day to get to know the girls working on the street, shop owners, and brothel owners. During one of my trips to India, several friends and I were invited to enjoy Republic Day with some young ladies. In spite of language barriers, we shared stories, made jewelry, and I was able to teach essential English vocabulary. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Everyone was laughing and smiling, with the exception of one girl in the back corner who looked like she wanted to dissolve into the wall next to her. These 60 girls had much in common. They were between the ages of 13 and 16 years old and had been brought to this safe house to begin the healing process and hopefully be reunited with their families. Rescue and restore is the work normally reserved for safe houses, service providers, and law enforcement. The rescue of a victim is not a simple process. Well-trained outreach teams are an effective way to build relationships with those still living in exploitation and help them see that there are options available to them. The restoration process begins with healing of physical, emotional, and psychological trauma. Many centers incorporate a craft or some sort of handiwork because working with your hands is so therapeutic. The despondent girl in the back of the room had just learned her family did not want her back. So this 15-year-old with little or no education would be in desperate need of counseling as well as life skills and job training to prepare her for the future and a valuable part of the next phase.
Let's take a closer look at the process of rescue and restore.
My favorite story of Eden Ministries is about the impact their outreach teams had on a local brothel owner. She brought all her girls into a room and said, "Go home to your families, don't ever do this again." And she turned her space into a restaurant. Eden is not only changing the lives of the survivors that come into their workspace, they are changing the attitude of those in the community about the value of women. Sue Mon's story of resilience shows the value of outreach teams in building relationships and being patient.
My name is Suman. When I came to Eden, I had spent years under the thumb of an abusive husband who forced me to sell my body for sex to cover his gambling debts. I knew I wanted something different from my life, but didn't know how to break free. I heard about Eden and decided to visit the office. Here they told me about the services they offer and how they could help me. One of the ladies gave me the interior heart of the committed heart necklace. She explained that the necklace had been purchased for me as a gift. I was moved to tears when she told me that the heart was a symbol of my great worth and that the person who purchased it was also wearing a partner necklace as a symbol of their commitment to me. When I was able to escape my husband's control and return to Eden for help, I was still proudly wearing the center heart they gave me.
Once healing has begun, a survivor needs to return and reintegrate into society. This is a time during which a survivor is provided with skills and a job. This headline from CNN quoting a survivor sums it up. "We need jobs, not pity." Without the ability to support themselves and be self-sustaining, they are likely to go back into a life they have known. Dignified employment means a safe place to work, a good wage that keeps a person out of poverty, and the dignity that comes from supporting oneself. When we think about trafficking, this last stage of return and reintegrate is too often neglected, but it's absolutely essential. When people ask who Made for Freedom helps, the easiest way for me to answer is this. We provide dignified employment for those who are vulnerable as a preventative measure, and for those who have survived exploitation as a restorative measure to keep them from being vulnerable again. During an early research trip to India, I found out about Sonagachi, a red light district with over 11,000 women being sold for sex on a daily basis. We met the founder of FreeSet, a center that works with women coming out of that district, teaches them how to read and write, teaches them how to sew, and gives them jobs. He showed us the manufacturing process, the daycare for children of the ladies, and the space where they come together each morning. I was able to speak with him privately for a few moments. I told him about the concept behind Made for Freedom and asked if he thought it was a worthwhile endeavor. He was steadfast in his statement about the necessity for businesses that would help spread and grow freedom for women who otherwise would have very few choices. Kundula's story of resilience is an amazing example of the perseverance and tenacity of so many survivors.
My name is Kundula. When I was 13, I was married off to a much older man because my family was very poor. At my new home, my life was dictated by my mother-in-law. One day, she sent me to work in the family's fields where a group of young men approached me and said, "Your mother-in-law has sold you to us for the afternoon." After being raped, too scared and ashamed to see my parents, I fled to my uncle's home. After a few days, my uncle told me I had brought shame on the family and it would be better for everyone if I just left the village. He promised to help find me a job in the city, but instead sold me into a brothel. After years of working there, a friend told me that some foreigners were going to open a small factory, so I joined the Freedom business and learned how to sew for a living. While working at FreeSet, I continued to live in the red light district in order to encourage others and help them understand that other options were available. With my head held high, I also made regular visits home to support my family. When my parents passed away and I inherited a small plot of land, I took my FreeSet family there and simply offered it to them. This inspired a new freedom business called FreeSet Fabrics, a weaving unit that started in 2014, providing options to local girls for a better life. Have you ever wondered how many slaves work for you? If you're like most people, this question has never occurred to you. Or if it did, the obvious answer is none. But this may not be true. It is hard to be a consumer these days without supporting some kind of labor exploitation. Slavery Footprint is an online tool that can help you not only understand the impact of your buying habits, but also provides information about how to minimize your negative impact and maximize your positive impact.
How many of those slaves work for you? That is the unsettling question being posed by a new online tool. It's called Slavery Footprint.
There was a house halfway around the world, and I was invited in for a small taste of gin. There was a hallway 1,000 birds long, but the biggest one of all was in a cage too small. I asked the caretaker, cause he was a maker, looked at me and laughed, took another sip from his glass, and said, "Open up your ear."
And here is how it works. Now, users answer a series of 11 questions about their homes, habits, and consumption of everyday products. Every day, tens of thousands of women buy makeup. And activists say that every day, tens of thousands of Indian children are forced to mine for mica. That's the material that makes makeup sparkle. Of course, the point of answering all these questions is to give an idea of how many slaves might make the products you use. And you can share your results on Facebook or Twitter, or you can send a letter to a company telling them you want to know about the use of modern-day slavery in their supply chains.
Town in the sweet New Orleans, to the Apple Bell Bar, there's a hole in the wall. The ceilings weren't tall, the floors were ground, but the sound that you were making just warmed your heart. Well, it was 11:45 when the boys walked in. They got their black suits on and the songs would begin.
If you think about it, every purchase we make is impacting lives. Slavery Footprint provides some examples of how everyday products use supply chains that harm and even enslave people. It's sobering, I know. Sometimes you think you're making a purchase that is helping people, when in reality it's helping and hurting.
I've seen a number of business models, usually the give back model where you buy one and it gives something to a person in great need. And what I've also seen in those business models, when they give that product to the person in great need, they can oftentimes disrupt the market that they're actually trying to help. For example, give a pair of shoes, buy a pair of shoes, give a pair of shoes, has literally gone in and put shoemakers out of business, put people that had meaningful jobs and work producing shoes, put them out of business, and put that community instead in a position of dependence on future gifts. So it's so easy to do what seems good and yet really hurt the community.
The good news is there are brands committed to building people up through using ethical supply chains. Made for Freedom is not only committed to the ethical standards of a safe workplace, a good wage, and the dignity that comes from supporting oneself. Our mission is to empower, protect, and increase hours of dignified employment. Each item we sell contributes to outreach teams, support services, and providing dignified employment. It takes some effort to research brands and find out which ones are in line with your ideals. But knowing that your purchases and your gift giving are changing lives makes it all worth it.
Now that you've learned about the issue of human trafficking and the value of dignified employment, are you ready to be part of the solution? Here's how. Get involved. Host your own Deep Fashion event by emailing deep@madeforfreedom.com or visit the Join the Fight page at madeforfreedom.com to see other opportunities to get involved. Got a special skill? Grab a business card and contact us. We'd love to hear from you. Purchase Made for Freedom products. Products sold by Made for Freedom are made by survivors of human trafficking and those coming out of marginalized situations. That means that the money you spend pays for the salary and supportive services of survivors. Each piece in the Speak Up collection says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." Proverbs 31, 8-9. This stainless steel bar has writing on 3 sides and says, "Seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly." When you purchase and wear a committed heart or gift of starlight necklace, it represents a promise from you. Each necklace has a middle heart or star that is given to a woman met during weekly outreach in trafficking hubs and red light areas. Each woman is given the heart or star necklace and told that somewhere in another city or country there is a person wearing the other half who values her and is standing up for freedom.
I mentioned the dread I felt while writing our business plan. I struggled through a significant learning curve and came out the other side with a plan and a business that has impacted trafficking survivors and marginalized peoples around the world. Our plan for positive impact started with Korea Belly Pants. After several orders from our first partner center, the leadership informed me they were finding wonderful opportunities for their ladies to further their education and start careers. It was fabulous news. And they were going to stop sewing. Not so fabulous for us, but definitely the kind of impact we want to be a part of. Understanding that the training process can be costly, our nonprofit arm provides funding for life skills and job training. This helps equip trainees to be successful once in their new job and/or prepare them for other careers. Another level of impact that was not written into the business plan was that of our customers becoming our advocates. Whether it's the pants, a necklace, scarf, or purse, I have people tell me on a regular basis, "I bought this last year." Every time someone asks me about it, I get to say, "Let me tell you about my necklace," or "Let me tell you about my scarf. Let me tell you about my purse." When we talk about the impact of Made for Freedom, it reveals layers and levels of impact. It could be bolstering centers to offer more advanced opportunities. It could be empowering and protecting through thousands of hours of dignified employment. It could be financial assistance for specific training. It could also be raising awareness and equipping our customers. In March 2018, Forbes ran a story on Made for Freedom. I was excited to see the response of people visiting our website and possibly purchasing. What I did not anticipate was the number of groups from around the world that would contact me and say, "Our organization is providing jobs for marginalized and survivors as well. Would you consider using us as one of your suppliers?" We have partnered with more than 15 centers to provide dignified employment, yet there are many more groups and organizations with a similar mission that need help getting their products in front of a larger audience so that they can continue to do the imperative work they are already doing. With your help, we can continue to grow the impact we've already seen around the world. You can purchase and share the story of your purchase with all who ask. You can make an even greater impact by hosting your own deep fashion event. Let us know how you would like to get involved on your involvement card. Be sure to put your name so you're included in the drawing. And thank you for taking time to learn about the issue of human trafficking and how dignified employment empowers and protects. Will you join us as we fight human trafficking with style?